Hey everyone, today we are going to continue comparing ratio relationships, but instead of comparing them on the graph, we are going to be comparing them in tables. So we worked on creating ratio tables and then putting them on the graph because that visual makes it very clear who has the greatest ratio of something to something else. Now we're going to make those connections in the table by themselves. So we're going to do 3 different ratio tables instead of one ratio graph that has 3 different ratios on it. And then we are going to talk about how do you know which ones need to be the same? How do you make that distinction? And then how do we answer the question? So I've got several examples here that compare 3 different things in each one. Just like when we did the graphs, we were comparing 3 different companies or 3 different restaurants. Being able to compare 3 different things or multiple things. The more you can compare, the better. So the first one says recipe A has a blueberry to strawberry ratio of 8:2. So here's my 8:2 for recipe A. Recipe B has a ratio of 5:1. So here's my 5:1. And recipe C has a ratio of 10:3. So there's my 10:3. So all of my tables have already been created. And it says you can use tables of equivalent ratios to determine which recipe has the greatest ratio of blueberries to strawberries. And the part of this that I want to focus on is this blueberries to strawberries. If I want to know which recipe has the greatest ratio of blueberries to strawberries, I am going to make the strawberries the same because I want to know which recipe gives me more blueberries. So when it says which fruit do you want the same amount of in the recipe to compare, you want the same amount of strawberries. Okay, what I want to know in this problem is if I have the same amount of strawberries, who gives me more blueberries or which recipe has the most blueberries? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue my ratio tables in each situation. So for recipe A, it's going to be 16 and 4 and then 24 and 6. And I'm just filling out the table. You'll notice that the tables are different sizes, and we'll talk about that in a second. In recipe B, I'm going to go up 5 and 1. So 15, 3, 24, 25, 5, and 36. And then for recipe C, I'm going to continue with my 10/3, so 20/6, 30/9. Now I filled in each of these ratio tables all the way, but remember, I'm trying to get strawberries to be the same. So as I'm looking at these 3 tables, change my color here. Okay, as I'm looking at my 3 tables, I want to know where strawberries is the same. And in all 3 of these tables, strawberries is the same in a different place. So here it's at the end, 24 and 6. Here it's also at the end, 30 and 6. And then here it's in the middle, 20 and 6. So if my strawberries are the same, so I have 6 cups of strawberries in each of these recipes, which one gives me the most blueberries? It's going to be recipe B. Because 30 is the most blueberries. So if I have the same amount of strawberries, who gives me the most blueberries? Recipe B. Okay, in example 2, it says Blake is considering different bird seeds to fill his bird feeder. Measured in ounces, recipe A has a sunflower seed to peanut ratio of 2:3. Okay, so recipe A has a sunflower seed to peanut ratio of 2:3. So sunflower seeds 2, peanuts 3. Recipe B has a ratio of 3:4. so 3 to 4. And recipe C has a ratio of 5 to 6, so 5, 6. Then it says, which recipe has the greatest ratio of ounces of sunflower seeds to ounces of peanuts? That means, so here's my ounces of peanuts, that's the thing that comes second. If ounces of peanuts is the same, which recipe gives me the most sunflower seeds? So I want to compare, I want to get ounces of peanuts to be the same. Okay. If the ounces of peanuts are the same, who gives me more sunflower seeds? So I'm going to do the same thing that I did in example 1. And then you may start to notice that you can figure it out a little bit quicker, and that's okay. We'll talk about that too. So first I'm just going to continue my patterns. So 4, 6, 6, 9, 8, 12. And then for 3 to 4, it's going to be 6 and 8, 9 and 12, 12 and 16. And then recipe C is going to be 10 to 12, 15 to 18, and then 20 to 24. And I am looking for where the peanuts are the same. So peanuts are the same at 12. And again, you can see that it happens in different places. So as you are going through these, if you know which value is going to end up being the same. So if you know for peanuts that 12 is going to be where they're the same, then only fill the table in until 12. So for recipe A, I need the whole table. For recipe B and recipe C, I don't need the whole table. I just need to have it be a 12 on the bottom. And you are able to stop creating the table at that point if you notice they're the same. Totally fine with me. So now I'm going to answer the question. So which recipe has the greatest ratio of ounces of sunflower seeds to ounces of peanuts? And it's going to be recipe C. When all of the peanuts are the same, recipe C has the most sunflower seeds with 10 ounces. Okay, so on to the next one. At the gym, Joey spends 24 minutes doing resistance training for every 30 minutes spent on cardio. So I'm looking at Joey, and I've got 24 minutes on resistance and 30 on cardio. Abby spends 15 minutes on resistance training for every 20 minutes of cardio, so 15 and 20. And then Dexter spends 14 minutes for every 15 minutes. So 14 and 15. You may have noticed that we create the tables in different sizes. So we have done that because we know what it's going to take for you to get to that certain value. You need to create your tables eventually for whatever you need. So if you want to do a whole bunch and then just figure out where they're the same later, that's great. If you can see what number they're going to have in common and you only create your table that big, that works too. So for Joey, I've got 48 and 60, and then 72 and 90. For Abby, I'm going to have 30 and 45 and 60 and, 40 then 60. And then for Dexter, 28, 42, and 56. And then 30, 45, and 60. I went a little out of order. Forgot to say which one needs to be the same. So we are looking for the greatest ratio of minutes of resistance to minutes of cardio. So we are looking for cardio to be the same. So if I look in my tables, I'm looking for where cardio is the same. And cardio is going to be the same at 60 minutes. So 60 minutes, 60 minutes, 60 minutes. Now, because we're comparing 3, all 3 of those bottom numbers have to be the same. So I can see that Joey and Dexter have something in common before 60. But because Abby does not fit into that, it's got to be all 3 of them. So now that I've got all of my cardio the same, I'm going to compare the amount of time they spend on resistance. And Dexter here has the greatest ratio of resistance to cardio. The last one says, at the community pool, Ella spends 30 minutes swimming laps for every 18 minutes spent treading water. So 30 and 18. Adriana spends 20 minutes swimming laps for every 12 minutes treading water. So 20 and 12. And then Braden spends 16 minutes swimming laps for every 9 minutes treading water. So 16 to 9. If I am looking for the greatest ratio of time spent on laps to time spent treading water, I want treading water to be the same. So I'm going to continue my ratios in my tables. Again, if you can get to them faster, you are allowed to do that. So if you can get them the same without having to fill in every single space in the table, that is totally fine. I'm going to continue filling in the tables. So this is going to be 60, 90, 120. Then I'm going to have 36, 54, and 72. For Adriana, I'm going to have 40, 60, 80, and 24, 36, and 48. And then for Braden, I'm going to have 32, 48, 64, and then 9, 18, 27, and 36. Because I want treading water to be the same, okay, that's going to be the one that's the same down here. So when I am looking at treading water being the same, it's the same at 36. And when I'm looking at who has the greatest ratio of time spent swimming laps to time spent treading water, well, Ella and Adriana spent the same amount of time swimming laps as treading water in their ratio. And Braden spent just a little bit more time. So my answer here is going to be Braden. Now, in all 4 of these examples, the labels were already in the table for you. So remember that they may not always be there. And when you are reading the question, that second value is the one that you want to be the same. So if that second value is the same, who gives you the greatest amount of that first value? Okay. And you do not have to fill in the entire table. If you can see what it's supposed to be to make it the same, you can just stop at that point. If it helps you to just continue filling in the table, you may continue filling in the table. I filled in the table for each one of these so that you guys could clearly see which values were the same and how I was comparing.